Friday, everybody. Marilyn Wilson here. I've got my water today for my coffee chat. And I wanted to introduce to you Cameron Paine. He's going to talk to us today. He's got a really interesting update on what's happening with the rental market. I think, a lot of us are wondering if, if shelter in place turns into working from home, what, if anything, will that do for where people live? What type of property do they live in? What will they be looking for? I heard yesterday that people are now looking for making all of their homes, if you do have a regular property, they're trying to make them into resort properties. So pools and cabanas and a lot of that stuff is getting a ton of attention right now. So it's interesting to see where it's all going to play out. But before we jump in, wanted to just remind everybody, I would love it when you ask us questions. And I love it when some of our locals check in. I saw Carl Demuse there today. Thanks, Carl. Good to see you. Tim Heckerman, Mary Palmer, a whole bunch of other people that come in regularly. So this is a little different than what we normally do. It's not so much about a product as it is to just educate all of us on what's happening with a particular market. So hopefully that'll be helpful to all of you today too. So again, let me officially introduce Cameron Paine. He's been a friend of mine forever. He actually ran an MLS created almost a full statewide MLS in Connecticut and has done some really interesting work. And now he's working for apartments.com. And he has something that he personally would like to share with us today to just kick off, giving all the craziness that's going on in the world. So Cameron, why don't you start with that and then we'll jump into our topic for today.
Thank you, Marilyn. And also thank you for making time today, both for just this little thought that I'd like to share and also to talk about apartments.com. But, first, I just want to stress that this is a comment that I'm just making personally. And I'm making it because both within CoStar and friends and my friends within the industry, people are in pain right now. And so I'd just like to say that I want to take a moment to honor the Americans who have lost their lives to and been victims of the violence that is currently gripping our nation. I want to stress that I'm speaking as an individual and as an American citizen. I would like to honor the Americans who are marching in peaceful solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter is a real movement with real grievances, and their peaceful protest is an exercise in the best tradition of every American's guarantee to their First Amendment right to free speech. Our shared American history clearly shows the importance of free speech in the face of a government's authoritarian violence. The first man to die in what was to become the American Revolution was named Crispus Attucks. Crispus was Black and Native American, and he was illegally gunned down by the British on March 5th, 1770. I would also like to recognize those law enforcement men and women who remember and honor their oath to serve and protect all American citizens, regardless of race, color, or creed. Racism has no place in America. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cameron. I appreciate that. I think there's a lot of people on the call that probably share a lot of those same perspectives. And I think we're all struggling a little bit with what is our role. Andrew just said, good for you, Cameron. So thank you for that, Andrew. Appreciate that. So let's just jump in now and let's talk a little bit about apartments.com. What is apartments.com and how can agents and brokers benefit from the product? And then we're going to go into you're going to give us an update on what you're seeing happening in the rental market, because there's some really interesting perspectives happening there.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn. So apartments.com is the most popular apartments website in America. We have 70 million visitors on a monthly basis. And our goal is to really be the antidote to some of the problems plaguing the industry right now. We are industry friendly in how we partner with our MLS broker and agent partners to get data. So what I mean by that is we feel strongly that when a broker or agent goes through the time, money, and effort to win a listing, we want you to have that lead back. There's no other way for us to look at that. So every lead that we get on apartments.com is passed back free to the listing agent. We don't sell space for anyone else to put themselves on your listing. We don't sell those leads. Our model is just very different from the other models that are out there right now. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of what apartments.com is and what we're looking to do in the industry.
Where does that, just because people get a little sensitive or a little cynical, frankly, sometimes when someone says it's free. So where does the revenue for the organization come from if it's not from the person that's contributing the content to the site?
Yeah, great question. So if you go to visit apartments.com and you do a search, you'll notice that at the top of the search typically will be apartment complexes, condo towers, et cetera. Those are search results returned because of paid placement by those apartment complexes, condo towers. So there's a couple ways. They will buy an advertising package.
Okay.
And so part of that package would be, I want my listings to show up in the search results, or when someone clicks on a listing from that apartment tower complex, they may have an enhanced virtual tour, like Matterport, that kind of thing, that is part of that package that they bought. So that's our model.
Awesome. Okay, good. Well, let's just jump in and there's a lot of suppositions about what's happening or what will happen. In fact, we're about to field a study in Houston to ask about, if I don't have to go to the office anymore, will that affect where I want to live? And did I buy that apartment in the city because I wanted to be close to the office and I didn't want to deal with the commute? Or did I feel like I sort of had to because that was kind of part of the social scene of the company? Will it change? And not just for rentals in general, but also for sale properties as well. So I don't think anybody knows the answers to those yet, but we'll get some consumer perspective, which I'll be happy to share with the audience. But love to, just to bring us up to speed on what you're seeing that's happening in different markets around the country right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a number of slides that we'll go through, and I just want to stress, really, nobody knows what it's going to look like for sure, but these slides are indicative of what we're starting to see. So, our crystal ball is just as cloudy as anyone else's. So I just want to stress again that these are leading indicators, perhaps, of what we might see. So this particular
pricing trends here. This is saying that the average price of the rent is coming down.
I missed the first part of the question. Sorry, say that again.
Oh, is this? This thing keeps bouncing. Sorry. Is this pricing trends that we're looking at, or is this? This first one is about the average price of the rental. Is that correct, or is that where they're going to live?
Yeah. So this is actually the number of the value of the rents. So
right.
Yeah, it's the automatic timing. Sorry, it's getting you there. And what this is showing is that in high dollar areas like San Jose, San Francisco, the rents are actually falling.
Gotcha.
And in the East Bay, it's more or less where it was in January. And in Sacramento, it's actually a little bit higher. And what we think we're seeing is a trend for people who have the option to look for less expensive places for them to live, so they are essentially earning more.
Right, gotcha. And this would suggest that what I just mentioned may be the case, that people that lived in the city said, I don't want to have to deal with that. If I can live in the East Bay, which is a gorgeous area, or Sacramento, which is even further, but a lot less expensive, my money may go further, and I won't have to be driving into the city or living in the city, which is a lot more expensive. So it's interesting. Okay, let's look at Southern California. What are we seeing there? Similar kinds of phenomenon?
Yeah, similar trend. And these are just, data points that are picked out. And I should mention that how we get these data points is important. CoStar, in order to do the research that our subscribers depend on for the CoStar products, whether that be CoStar or LoopNet, we call 10,000 communities every month to get this information. So this is kind of how we get these. We don't call the same 10,000 every month,
Gotcha.
to make sure, we get the breadth of information. But so that's how we arrive at this. And so Southern California is essentially showing the same thing. Inland Empire is actually increasing because it's a less expensive to start with
Yep.
area. But very expensive areas like San Diego, LA, Orange County are all seeing decreases at this point.
Interesting. Yeah, so it looks like people are moving inland where it's a lot less expensive. It makes sense. Okay, what are we seeing in Maryland and Virginia, the other side of the country?
Really, we're seeing the same thing. You've seen areas like Baltimore, which was less expensive, doing okay. Norfolk is doing okay. Richmond is actually doing better, but Washington, D.C. is more or less stable at this point.
Interesting. So we got a question from one of our MLS execs that's on the call today. Are these statistics available for each individual market if there's an apartments.com agreement in place with MLSs?
Unfortunately, no. These are derived from the CoStar data set.
Okay.
So when we have an agreement with an MLS, that is specifically for display. We don't use that data in our research product. So unfortunately, the answer on that is no. That being said, I am working on getting some statistical information available to our MLS data partners. I think that'd be really valuable for our data partners at the MLSs to both have to understand what's happening in their market, and also to ideally be able to provide downstream to your brokers and agents. We just don't have that available right at this moment. It's something we're working on.
Gotcha. Julietta wanted to know, is there a way that I could have a copy of these slides? We're going to be sending the recording, Julietta, but is there a way that they could actually get the actual deck?
I am not allowed to share the deck outside of this particular, but I can check into that. How about that?
Okay.
This deck actually comes to us directly from our CoStar group. John Affleck, I want to give a shout out to John. He prepared these slides, and he is our vice president of market analytics, and just has done a tremendous job for us. So I don't want to steal his thunder, and these are technically his slides, so I don't want to step outside of what I'm allowed to do.
Okay, well, definitely, Julietta, you'll be getting a copy of this recording. So if you want to just share the recording, that's for sure. And then we'll get back to you if there is an opportunity to share the individual slides. So let's look at New York. Obviously, the hub of what was going on here. I've heard a lot of people around the country that are selling properties tell me that they're getting lots of calls from New York. They're in Savannah and Texas and California and everywhere. It's like, get me out of here. I don't want to be part of this anymore. What are we seeing?
Yeah.
Is that the same thing here?
So what we're seeing here is a couple things. One is I think what we've seen in the other markets where typically less expensive areas like Hartford and Philly are actually doing better, whereas northern New Jersey is more or less flat, but New York is starting to come down. But the difference is what we're really seeing in the New York market is concessions. There are a lot of concessions that are happening in rents in New York. And it's also happening, frankly, in other high dollar areas on the California coast as well. But that is one of the things we're starting to see is sometimes as high as 50% of the people we have called are offering concessions in those high dollar markets.
What kinds of concessions are they offering?
It could be a month's rent. It could be additional amenities. There's just a huge variety of things, but typically it's involving dollars. It's giving a month rent in order to extend the lease by a month on the backside, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, interesting. Well, it's interesting how it's playing out. It seems consistent with what we're hearing demographically, that people are just either because they don't like the density for the disease opportunities and risk there, or it's just that if I don't have to go to the office, why am I paying those high rents? It could be both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
think that.
What
sorry,
is this?
Go ahead, Meryl.
Yeah, tell us about this one. So percentage of properties are reporting higher vacancies. Tell us
Right.
about.
This shows basically a cyclical, year over year properties reporting higher vacancy. And, what we're seeing in May of 2020, if
Mhm.
you look back to May of 2019 and May of 2018, it's higher.
Mhm.
So we're starting to see a rise in the number of properties reporting higher vacancies.
So this is, I'm just reading the bottom, shows the percentage of properties with at least 25 units. So this is larger buildings
Yes.
reporting higher vacancy compared to the prior observation within 6 months. So this isn't somebody that owns like a double in their neighborhood. This is more for bigger properties, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Oops. I went back. These slides are just getting away from me today. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have thought to have removed the timing on those.
Yeah. That's showing it. So it's the highest we've seen in May in 4 years. That's pretty significant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically 8% increase year over year.
And that's interesting too, because we hear so much that there's such a shortage of rental properties available. That number is pretty surprising to me that it's really that high. That's pretty significant. Anyway, so
Right.
let's look at this one now. What is this one looking at in terms of individual markets? What is this telling
This,
us?
yeah, exactly. This is individual markets and the amount of increase that we're looking at. And this is a comparison between April, May of 2020 versus April, May from 2017 to 2019. So it's a significant change in these markets, or significant increase in these markets. So San Jose is over 10%, Memphis is roughly 10%, Portland roughly 10%, I'm sorry, more than 10%, Seattle more than 10%, Palm Beach is more than 10%, San Francisco is roughly 10%, Miami roughly 10%, Las Vegas roughly 10%, Northern New Jersey a little less than 10%, and Orlando a little less than 10% as well.
Interesting. So it's kind of all over the map. And do you think any of the folks that are not renting are moving to a purchase? Are you seeing any of those kinds of trends?
We're not. And, just from a historical perspective, in previous downturns, we don't see an increase in the home ownership rate. We see an increase in the rental rate. And there are a number of things that I would point to as possible reasons for that. In a down market, people may be looking for a job, so they have to move, but they're not sure how long they want to move for. So it's a good rental opportunity rather than necessarily a sale. There's also, unfortunately, people will lose their homes if they lose their job. So, that is a factor as well. So, I mean, there are a lot of factors going in, and I just want to stress, we're not sure, what this is
Right.
going to end up looking like. And these are just trends that we're starting to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's look at the next one. This one is kind of the opposite, right?
Exactly. So for despite the fact that there are markets where we're seeing higher vacancy rates, there are markets where we're actually seeing flat or smaller or shrinking vacancy rates. So Sacramento is the largest one with almost 10% decrease in vacancy rates.
Interesting.
Milwaukee, I think, was the second one there.
Yeah.
Yep. With a small decrease, Jacksonville, small decrease, Minneapolis, Norfolk, Kansas City, Stamford are all flat, and Inland Empire, Detroit, Hartford may show small increases, but more or less flat compared to the numbers we had seen. And again, this is 2020, April, May of 2020 compared to April, May of 2017 to 2019.
It's interesting to see, this sort of migration pattern, if you will, that we're seeing here. Or what this might suggest is that people are leaving the bigger cities, and I don't know what that means for commercial real estate, the people that own those big buildings, and
yeah,
and we all don't know what the shelter in place looks like, or what will we do once we don't have to shelter in place. I know in our, folks that I've been talking to, it's like people are kind of getting used to working from in their homes, but in their
Yep.
shorts, so there may be a
Yeah.
lot more of that. And I think maybe more of a belief that, and an understanding that you really can do business without sitting in the same office. In fact, sometimes you can do more business when you're not, there's a lot of time that gets wasted, and nobody thinks of it as wasted time, but well, how was how was the soccer game last night? And there's a lot of socialization that goes on, and frankly, just distraction. Someone walks by and it catches your eye, and then you look up from your computer, and then it takes you 10 minutes to get back into it again.
No, it's
So
true.
I don't know.
It's very true. John Affleck, our VP of data analysis, he raised a really interesting point that it could be about really what is the value to renters right now. So typically, in those markets like New York, Miami, San Francisco, why do people move there? Well, you have the restaurants, and you have the nightlife, and you have all these different things that people thought were valuable. Now, if those don't exist anymore because of COVID, or are reduced because of COVID, or the risk is increased because of COVID, what does that look like? So what is the value proposition for these people? And that value proposition may change. It may be, it's not as worth it to have access to those amazing cultural aspects as it is to stay safe. So
to stay
it's
home,
going to depend on, and
it's
stay
gonna
home,
be
yeah.
entertaining at home. I think we're getting used to that. Okay, so what is this telling us in terms of the quarterly change in demand? What's happening with this slide?
Yeah, so this is, I just want to stress, a forecast. But what this is showing is a forecasted reduction in demand over a period of time. So what you're seeing there is annual, so 20, 21, 22, 23, et cetera.
Oh, that's an annual. I was wondering what those numbers were. Okay, so we're now into 2021. We're seeing it's going to go up and then flatten back out again. It looks like as we move forward into the next year or two.
Yeah, so what they expect to see is an increase in the amount of demand for rentals, essentially, which again makes sense. Historically, you'll see another bump back in the 08, 09 in the recessionary time. So that may or may not have implications for the for sale market. It still remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But that that's the forecast that we're looking at. And I just want to stress, like, if you look at those numbers, the forecast is actually for initially for negative demand.
Right.
So we don't know. Again, I want to stress it's a forecast, but the possibility is there that if the brakes get put on the economy, if the brakes get put on any number of different things, if COVID-19 has a second round, there's a lot of variables out there. So our crystal ball is as cloudy as anyone else's, but the difference between ours and anyone else's is, frankly, CoStar has a really unmatched ability to source our data. And again, I want to stress for my MLS partners, we do not use MLS data for this. The MLS data agreements we have are strictly for display.
Gotcha. So this is looking at, like you said, this is probably the larger buildings, not necessarily just local residential, the one property kind of thing. But that, based on what you're seeing with the demand falling off, that this 2021 forecast seems to be logical. But then again, it might create pent-up demand where people are going to have to go back out. Or if jobs return, I mean, we have 35 million I don't know, a lot of people that don't have jobs right now, which may be part of what's driving this as well. That makes a lot of sense. I know it, like, my family, my daughter's involved with the dance industry and entertainment industry in LA. That business is just dead. There's no jobs, nobody's booking, there's no TV shows being produced. They're just out of business. And the rents are, you know, 1,700, 2,200, 2,500.
Yeah.
And frankly, artists were starving to begin with, right? So this kind of stuff is making a lot of them go back home. They can't afford to live in LA. They just can't do it. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that there's a lot of, you know, the hardest hit parts of the economy are going to have to do things differently. And that's probably what we're going to see. But again, there may be some behavioral changes that we see that are going to have longer term impacts of people, and, you know, good news for people that are in the Sacramentos, or they sort of the bedroom communities, or even a little further out from the main cities. They may see a boom in rents and in residential properties. It'll be really interesting to see. I'm dying to do this research with consumers to find out if they're really thinking about moving because of things like this. So I'll share that with the audience when we get that back. It'll be really helpful. But
Yeah.
anyway, well, thank you, Cameron. This is a really good overview. It'd be great to keep this in touch. When you do these again, let's publish them, because I think we all want to understand what's going on with every market that we work in, but rental obviously is a very important one, especially sometimes when, you know, the residential business gets soft, people tend to turn back to rentals as a way to sort of fill in the gap. So it's good to know what's happening with what's happening with it. So I appreciate your giving us the update today. So I wanted to let everybody know that tomorrow we've got Viral Workman coming in. I'm not tomorrow, sorry. We're taking tomorrow off, Monday. Viral Workman, who runs Workman Success Systems, a great coaching group. He's just built a whole new virtual real estate certification. So he's going to talk to us about, you know, what that certification looks like, but specifically what is it that he thinks are the most important things to continue to operate in a world that is certainly going to be more, if not completely virtual, certainly a lot more virtual than it was before we began all of COVID and all the other craziness. So look forward to that one. He's a great speaker. If anybody has heard him speak, you'll know, very inspirational, and he has a ton of experience working with top producers from around the country and top producing teams. So if you're a team, I would definitely tune in on that one. You'll learn some really interesting things from him. And if any of you would like to get coffee chats registered for them automatically, we'd love to help you with that. Just either put it in the question box right now, or email me at marilyn@retechnology.com, and we'll be happy to get you registered. And we've got lots of thank yous for you, Cameron, to find some really interesting information, because nobody really knows what's happening with rentals. I think that's the first time we've seen a lot of good data about that, so it's really helpful. And finally, we'd love it when you guys, you know, get to view the coffee chats live, and if you want to watch them later. I know the one woman especially that was asking for that. If you go to our YouTube channel at RE Technology Inc. with no spaces, subscribe to that channel, and then push the little button, the little bell next to the subscribe button, and you'll get notifications every time we publish a coffee chat recording or a webinar recording. We also will send them all to you, the recordings as well, so you don't have to go look for them if you don't want to. And just a reminder that many of you get RE Technology as a subscription. It's normally cost you $200 a year, but MLSs around the country have offered that to you free. So thank you to them that have done that. But if for whatever reason you do not have a subscription, go to retechnology.com, go up to the top right, click Create Account, look for the monthly option, and then type in the code that's on the screen there, and we'll get your free 3-month subscription, so you can take advantage of all of these types of great technology and you know, trend topics that we talk about on a daily basis. So with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Let's hope that everybody can stay safe in so many different contexts these days. Thank you, Cameron, for the courage to remind us all what it means to be a responsible American. I really appreciate you doing that on the beginning of the call. And everybody have a great time. We'll see you on Monday with Viral Workman, 9 o'clock Pacific. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Marilyn.